Hello there. I've got more rustic goodness because that's what I do. So some home decor DIYs. Got about 3 of them or 4 of them. I'm Whitney with Crafty Thoughts and Whatnots, and let's get into the craft room. All right, first DIY. I'm going to make a wall pocket because I felt like it. And so I grabbed some goodies from what I had on hand. I had a wood plank board here. This is a Dollar Tree piece of wood. And I'm going to use my favorite wood tint here in the color walnut. I get from Amazon. It's Folk Art Home Decor wood tint. And I am going to cover this entire girl, this pretty little girl here. She will be pretty in a second. All over. Now, I realize because I'm making a wall pocket, we are going to be using a piece of fabric. In this case, we're going to be using a piece of canvas towards the bottom. And I didn't really need to use the wood tint on the entire part. So there's going to be a weird random piece of non-tinted wood in the middle, because that's what happens when you forget halfway through that you don't have to cover the entire, piece with product. So anyways, moving forward, that's why you see that there. Now, the tops and the ends, because it's a raw piece of wood, the back started to absorb that wood tint so much that I ended up just getting a paper towel and just kind of trying to even it out. I just want it to look decent from the back, should the back show. Now what I'm going to do is, this is a drop cloth I get from Amazon. I am going to cut a chunk of it off, and then we're going to measure some more. At first I didn't know if I wanted to wrap this around the whole entire piece of wood, or if I was just going to make it, secured just to the front. We ended up going with the latter of the two, but in this instance, while I'm cutting the canvas, I wasn't aware just yet of what I was going to do. Realized, I got a little bit too much here, but we're, again, saving all the remnants. That's what we do. And it will come in handy probably for another future project. That's why we have junk buckets. At least that's why I have multiple junk buckets. Now, with the pencil, I made some marks and some measurements so that I could just get enough of the drop cloth that I can secure to the front of the wood. Now, what I want to do is I want to put some stripes on here, kind of like a grain sack look. Now, I'm going to use my archival ink here in the color Ground Espresso. And I'm going to put a couple stripes going each way. I wanted to go for I said grain sack look. I'm not absolutely sure if grain sack is just one stripe or 2 stripes, but this is almost kind of like a little plaid feel. I just went down the right side and then across the bottom. And I just took some masking tape and put a thicker line and a thinner line. And trying to follow the grain sack rules. I don't know if there are any or not. I just did what I've seen done on other channels and other creative pieces. You go to Pinterest for inspiration. You go to magazines and different types of things, even commercials, those types of things. Lots of inspiration. I just went for that as far as what I thought would be, vintage, rustic, farmhouse, broken, distressed, depressed. You name it, I wanted to go in that direction. So I did like a double grain sack looking thing with different widths of stripes here, and it worked out great. Didn't bleed or nothing, just worked out great. Now again, that's archival ink. It's meant for scrapbooking. It doesn't bleed and it dries quickly. So at that point, once we're done and it's good to go, I did shred. I did kind of fray the edges a little bit there. I was showing you off on the camera just right before I'm gluing this down, and I'm going to glue the edges down first on each side, so we have a little bit of leeway in the middle. Remember, if you make this a pocket, we need to have a little bit of room to actually tuck things into said pocket. If you actually don't, if you just cut the piece of fabric to fit exactly, it's going to be so tight you won't be able to squeeze anything in there. So I have to use a little bit. The canvas there, that drop cloth is a little bit wider than the wood needed, that it needed to be that it did need to be. The words putting into sentence making. Here's where I went wrong. I don't really like the fact that I used a staple gun. I have furniture tacks. You could have even went out to the garage and got some nails and been fine and dandy to use nails, but I was like, well, maybe I can get these distressed with some more ink. Well, I'm aging the edges of the canvas here, but it's not doing anything to the bright silver staples. So I'll show you. I cover it up later because it ends up bugging me too much. In the meantime, as we continue with our pocket, I took some extra pieces of styrofoam I had on hand and some remnants of batting left over from past projects of padding different things you've seen me do on my channel many times. I have lots of remnants of batting here. So I wrap that piece of styrofoam around the middle and I'm kind of squishing it down in there. Then I'm going to take some more batting and then just pad the sides, you know, just kind of make it, just fluff it out a little bit. And then we're going to use tissue paper later on after we put some florals in here just to kind of fill in that empty space. But for now, we're going to fill in with some goodies. So I got these spoons out on my last video to use for staging on one of the little jars that I painted and made, and I thought that these would look cute in the wall pocket itself. And so I left them raw. I didn't want to stain them. You get too many of the same color, you won't be able to see it. This isn't meant to be like a monochromatic look, so I wanted to go more natural on that. So I left the spoons the way they are. Could have tied some bows. I didn't, just left them where they are. Now I'm going to take some burlap rope that I get off of Amazon. I'm going to cut a random piece and I'm going to burn the fuzzies off. I'm going to secure it to the back. I had to take the staple or the spoons out to do that, so flip it over. It's a good thing because half the time I do this stuff, I forget to put the hanger on the back until the end. So at least I remembered, at least in the beginning, you know, somewhat in the beginning. I had to take the spoons out. So after I, you know, push them staples in a little bit further, a little bit of hammer work, and then we're back and ready to put the spoons and the spatula back into our project. Now I got a little glue there in the middle of that spatula and that spoon, so we're going to cover that up with the florals once we get to it, and I'll point that out to you when we get to that there. But I needed to just secure these girls back in there. You see how the glue's kind of shining there in between the spatula and the spoon. So yeah, we'll have to cover that up, but there's never a problem. Now I got all of my greenery out here. This is just a leftover piece of a bundle I got from, honestly, I couldn't tell you where I got it. I'm going to pull this piece out here and then cut it to fit, you know, trim it up a little bit, get some of the extras off there. I got also, I'm going to take a piece of some Amazon eucalyptus, and then these white flowers. I think this bundle's from Hobby Lobby from a few years ago. And with just all the randomness I have, I just grabbed these things from my stash, and we're going to add them into the pocket in no specific order, no rhyme or reason. I'm just doing what my little crafty heart feels would look nice. So I put the longer one in first, then I'm going to put my eucalyptus behind it. It ends up kind of going off onto the left side. Most of these flowers end up going more towards the left side. And then I was left like with a little hole there kind of in the middle between the florals and the spoons and spatulas, because I didn't really necessarily want to cover up too much of the spoon and spatulas. I wanted them to kind of be more of the art of the piece. So we just keep connecting things in. Now I ended up using a little bit of a staple gun because too much hot glue in one spot was going to make it impossible for me to continue to feed stems down into that pocket. And these little white flowers, I love them. They turned out much, way better in the arrangement than I thought, because they have a lot of movement to them. I like when there's certain things, yes, it's secured into the project, so it's not going to come out. They're not going anywhere. But when they still have movement and they shake or they move while you're moving the piece. Now, granted, you're going to put this on the wall or you're going to put it as a shelf sitter. It's not going to move. It's not going to shake. Unless you randomly walk up to your decorations in daily life and pick them up and shake them. Yes, I know, I'm weird. But I've accepted that in life. I just like certain things to have movement. I don't know. It adds more to it for me. Now, as I've secured some more goodies in, you saw that I covered up the glue there. I was jibber jabbering through that. I covered up the glue in between the two utensils there with a piece of the item that that first stem there that I cut off of it. I think I'm ready to fill in some of this pocket here to make sure it doesn't look so flat or hollow on the side. So I just took one piece of tissue paper and I started to kind of, not necessarily ball it up tight, but I did, wrinkle it up a decent amount, and then I was feeding them down in there with some scissors just to get the placement right so that the pocket looks a little fluffy and full and not too empty or it had holes in the center or the side. So here's also where I decided to finally cover up those staples that were bothering me so badly. I just really couldn't get my mind, or I hated the staples. It's just what it is. Do you like them? Tell me what your thoughts are. Would you have done this too? This is the best thing. This is going to tie it into what I used for the hanger so it matches, but it's also a thicker rope too. So I tied a knot on the one end because you're going to see this end. So this is my little decorative, start to the border, you could say. And I'm going to glue it down along where the staples are so you cannot see these staples. And then curve it around the edges and just completely cover them up. Now, when we get to the other side here at the very top, I'm not going to put another knot because my original plan, and I'm sticking to it, is we're going to put a bow on that side. We're going to put a little bit of extra accoutrement So there's no need to put another knot there. Now, before we do our bow, I did need to add one more little random white fluffy floppy flower right here in the middle. And this just makes so happy. That's right, when I got that, you know, happy squishy feeling, was that little white bow. And then I saw my lavender off to the side here, and I grabbed literally just one sprig off of the bush, off of that bundle. Just cut one little sprig out of the bundle, and I decided to feed it right down into the center. And it just made me happy. It was very springy, summery, and yeah, it didn't necessarily match the motif. I usually try to do my videos with like a theme in mind so that they all match, but at this point it's just happiness, you could say. We'll just say rustic fancy farmhouse cottage happiness in a bundle, in a box with a bow and a smile. Yeah, well, that sounds great to me. If you have to put a title to it, let's do that. Now I'm just adding some Spanish moss to tuck around the edges here to make that look like the arrangement's done. And now we're going to add our bow. So this is about all I have left of one spool of this cute ribbon I got from burlapfabric.com more than a couple years ago. So I'm going to just take things. What I did was I already cut the edges at a diagonal. I do this a lot with my bows. I will get the ends ready as though they're done, and then I end up trimming them later. So I just made a layered bow where you make an awareness ribbon shape and then bring the top down to the middle where they cross and then pinch it there. And that's all we're going to do. We're not going to secure it with anything other than my staple gun. We're going to add to the top of it so the staple won't show. And this is the easiest way. I don't have to bundle it. I don't have to tie twine around it. And you won't get a bigger, bulkier center because we're going to layer more items on the bow. I love being able to staple into things. So again, the use of the wood for the wall pockets, what's making me happy about that. Now I'm grabbing some baker's twine. I got this from Dollar Tree a while back, and it's just a nice natural color with white mixed in. And this one I am going to wrap it around my fingers 3 times, leave some tails. I'm going to grab another piece of twine and cut that off, and I'm going to use that to wrap it around the center and then tie a knot. I am not going to cut off the tails of the knot. I'm going to use that towards the tails of the bow. So after I tie the knot in the center, I'm going to manipulate those tails to come down behind the bow so that they hang with the other tails that we made when we made the bow. And then it looks like we have 4 bows, or 2 bows with 4 tails. Then we end up having like a double bow look here. Hopefully that made sense. At least if it didn't verbally, you can at least see what my hands are doing. Hopefully. And then I just kind of tacked that down there in the middle with a little bit of glue in the center. And that's all she wrote for the bow. Now, I have this little bundle that I took off of a garland that I got at Hobby Lobby. It's like a big pipberry garland, and I buy it once in a while when it's on sale. And I'm just going to take 1 sprig from the garland. That sprig we are going to completely take apart and add the little curlicues of that little berries into the arrangement. I added as many as I needed to. Well, actually, pretty much all of it, except for I had 2 left. And the 2 pieces I had off to the left here left over, I didn't want to put into my junk bucket yet again. So I just kind of randomly grabbed them. And this is what happens when I'm creating. Like, I will grab things and I will test it out and kind of lay it here and lay it there and move it left, right. And I will cut out so much footage, guys, because these videos would be 2-3 hours long if I left all of the fussy messing around with stuff in. So I like the way it looked when I kind of just held it up to the side down, cascading down with the tails there of that baker's twine. So I tacked it in with some glue. Then I went and got my staple gun back out, and then I stapled those ends in. And it's not going anywhere. So with the glue solidifying and also the addition of them being stapled to the wood, those berries look great hanging down there with the bow tails. I love it. And even then, when I'm trying to show you that I'm done here, I still have to, let me mess and fuss with this bow. I do that all the time. I even do it in public. If I come across decorations, especially big problem for me is Christmas time when I go out to places like the grocery store and they've got bows and stuff that's been completely crushed. And I'm like, oh, I have to fix that. I literally can't not fuss with a bow. It's just, it's in my chemical makeup at this point. I've accepted it. Do you do that? Do you mess with stuff when you go out in public? Like, oh, I'm going to fix that for you. I love how she turned out. It's cute. It was inspired by many different things, different YouTubers, different Pinterest ideas. You got the kitchen element with the spoons there. And again, the colors look great. That little extra, just 1 sprig of lavender is just completely doing it for me. And I love it. Tell me what you think, though. Now this one here, this is our little thrift flip. I got this sign at Savers. And wow, Savers is, you know, not cheap, but it was a cute little sign. And I had my thrifting has just been a new thing for me. I've gone to the thrift store in the past, but not like I've been recently. And of course, I watch a bunch of thrifting videos now too. I'm a little addicted to it. But in any event, I got this little, so I got a bunch of signs and some picture frames and stuff. So what I'm going to do is, after I cleaned her all up, I'm going to take my DIY paint in the color B-board. I get my DIY and my IOD products from Lori at miltonstunner.com. There is a link to all of these products that I'm using in my video in my description, as well as a code there for qualifying purchases. Take a peek. It's a great place to get a lot of good things, and I use a lot of those products in my videos. So I end up doing about 2 coats because we're going to decoupage over the top of this pretty girl here. And so I'm cleaning up the edges. Now I could have did this because DIY paint is not... it does not have a top coat in it. It's clay based, so it's water soluble. I could have used a wet cloth, and just kind of, you know, dialed that back with the paint that I got on the edges, but I wanted to clean up some of the raw wood too. Now we're going to use this rooster here on this beautiful piece of decoupage paper that I got from Lori, also miltonstunner.com, and with liquid patina, which is my favorite medium for decoupage. I'm going to apply this pretty little rooster here to the front of our little sign. Now, I use the method of like a starter strip, you could say. I love the liquid patina. I do not have a problem with it. I don't have wrinkles. I don't have bubbles. I don't have issues. Mod Podge was never that good of a product for me personally. Now, this liquid patina works for everything that I've used, even when it's non-rice paper, if I've used tissue papers or scrapbook papers. So basically I put a strip down, and then I push the piece back into it. I got my edge a little wet and then made sure I had secured on that. And then I go back under and I do the rest in sections. Depending on how big your project is, this is basically my MO for every time I decoupage, and I have had no problems. Now I'm going back over the top with a good decent amount, and then also concentrating on the top and bottom edge where I have excess paper, because I want to make sure that once that dries, I have a good crisp line. Once it's dry as it is here, we're going to go back with the sander, any type of sanding block, I almost said file cabinet. Yeah, go use a file cabinet. File, like a nail file or an emery board, those work too. Really good for in the craft room. This is I just put a fresh piece of sandpaper on my finger sander, so this came off super fast and easy. And I like that clean edge that you get from it. It's, you know, a clean fuzzy edge, if that makes sense. So now we're going to go back and distress around the edges again. We're going to match it up with the rest of our products, and we're going to use ground espresso. And I got these little finger dauber thingies here from Amazon. And I'm going to go around the edge. At first you'll see it's kind of slow going. It's a little bit light because you want to, you know, you can always add more, but it's hard to take away kind of thing. So it's like you just don't want to dump a bunch of salt in it, because then you can't take it back out. It's going to be hard to back this out because this is a permanent ink and it dries pretty quickly. So, you know, in scrapbooking, it's an archival ink, it's acid free, it's all that good stuff, but it doesn't come off. So, you know, use accordingly. I usually get braver as I go, and then I get a little bit more heavy handed. And then for the edges, I just ended up picking up the whole stamp pad here and then just rubbing that along the edges to get that color, you know, to get the raw wood to soak it back up so that you didn't see the white anymore. And then that's all done and dry. We're going to move on to a Vintage Flourish Corner set of stencils from Essential Stencil. And my first time ever, I'm going to use Distress, well, that's the brand, Texture Paste. I've seen a lot of people using Texture Paste with stencils, and I wanted to try it out. And I thought, why not try it now? So I'm going to tape off those sections of the stencil that I don't want to have the transfer come through at. And I just took, this is a little putty knife or scraper tool thingamabobber, technical term there. I got a pack of them from Dollar Tree, and I took a chunk of the paste and I'm just scratching it on there. It's one of those things where I'm learning pressure and, you know, how to hold it, you know, the angle, how to scrape, how thick the stencil is, as opposed to how much is it going to pull out the paste, because I want it to be a certain thickness in order for it to have the 3D effect so that you can see it. That's basically what the texture paste is for. It adds another element to a stencil to your project. So I wanted to make sure I got it done the way I've seen other people do it online too. So with this, I just kind of kept going at it for a while. This was my first run again, so I sped this up a couple times because, you know, you saw me doing that in real time, and it's long enough, about 15 hours later. So again, I just kind of was going at it, added more, took off a little bit too much, then added a little bit more, and then took off too much. And then it came out great. Just right here, just have to put off to the side. Watch out for that reveal, man. I was so happy. It's one of those things where I didn't have to wipe it off. I didn't have to try again. And I like that it has a little bit of different surface. You can see the texture in the surface. It's a texture paste, obviously. So it's just, it looks very stucco-y stone. Insert fantasy soap opera book jargon here. It turned out great. And if that one, you see how brave I was? I didn't even tape it down. I didn't tape it off or tape it down. I just held it there. And they dry fast too. I mean, this is only as thin as, it's only as thick as your stencil is. So again, it dries pretty quickly and it looks great. And I didn't add anything else to this. I was really struggling, thinking maybe I should put some jute on here. Maybe I should put a button or something. And I just didn't. I left it as it is. I let it dry. And then I hit it with this weather defense here. This has been one of my new favorites as far as sealing things. Now again, the stuff I make is indoor stuff. I'm not making anything for the outdoors. Everything I make lives a city life, and that means it's inside. It is not a country. It is not a farm. Yes, I say I like Farmhouse, but again, I've never been on a farm. I just like the style. So everything I'm making, yes, the weather defense put a great seal on it, and that helps protect it from just, regular wear and tear and touching it. But again, this is not going to be an outside piece. But tell me what you think. Should you have added some more? Would you have added more? Would you put some? The only thing I think I would have did was probably put some jute on it somewhere. But I didn't want to cover up the rooster, and I didn't want to cover up the pretty little decoration. So, tell me your thoughts. Now, lastly, we have 2 DIYs, and we're going to make what I love to call junk drawers. So I have a wood crate from Dollar Tree and a wood box from Dollar Tree, and we're going to stain these guys. Same MO as before. My favorite stain is wood tint from Folk Art Home Decor wood tint in the color walnut. I love this dang walnut color so much. Now, I ended up just the same as before. We're going to do top, sides, back, middle, edges, left, right, upside down, you name it. Cover both of these things. Now you could do this with water. Now on the crate itself, it's going to get a little messy because you got to get in between all these little slats and everything. Now you could do that with water. It's a lot easier if you put them in with water and tint it. I didn't want to wait for the wood to dry because I am impatient and I didn't want to. So we got it done. And now I'm going to take these 2 gorgeous pieces of decoupage paper, that's rice paper that I got from Lori at miltonstarter.com. Again, everything will be linked. Everything I've used in this video will have a direct link to it, but then also there is a code for qualifying purchases. Take a look at her website because there is so much stuff. Look at this paper here with the chipped paint on the brick wall. So many colors. Love it. Now I'm going to take a piece of, this is a marker pad that I got with some marker sets, which we're actually going to use just a little bit on one of our little extras that we're going to add into our junk boxes here, our junk drawers. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to create inserts for my box and my crate. This is going to eliminate some of the headache of decoupaging inside of a box that you can't take apart. Cutting the decoupage paper to fit would have been a small nightmare, on top of the fact of having to paint the insides of the boxes white, because anytime I decoupage, I prefer to have a white background so that the paper shows up properly. In case it is not opaque, you end up having those colors seeping through it, and it could darken the project. So now you're watching me cut 50 billion and 6.2 little pieces off of the edge of every single one of these over and over again, because again, you can always take away, but you can't add back unless you want to just keep starting over and over. And measuring and me are not best friends. Yeah, we're basically cordial. So I was just taking the outside that I drew around the box, knowing that I needed to take a certain amount off around each edge to compensate for the thickness of the sides of the boxes and the crate. So you're seeing still continuing, and I don't know why I left this much of it in there. Eventually you find that sweet spot, and then the little insert fits perfectly. Now you could do this. This is what I've done this many times with scrap paper when I want to fill the back of something with scrap paper. But in this instance, I want the decoupage paper to shine through. That's our decoration. So after we get another 52.6 billion pieces cut off of the sides, and I sit there and I show you all the painstaking time it took me to do that, and then making sure each side is square and straight, even though the box itself probably isn't, because 98.9% of the time from Dollar Tree, nothing is plumb or straight or even. But that's part of the charm, right? So after we get the inserts that fit great, we're going to take some double-sided adhesive. Now I got that beautiful big Scotch double-sided adhesive. Basically, it's a wonderful thing for scrapbooking. I got that on Amazon. So I will not be running out of my glue runner or my glue tape anytime soon, which makes me happy. After I do that, I put the glue runner on the back of what we made our inserts out of, and then I am gluing that face down to the back of the decoupage paper. Now, of course, pay attention to the front. If there's a specific part of the design you want to show, be cognizant of that and place it down there. Now, trimming off the excess around the edges because there was a border, and then making sure that my insert is still fitting in there the way I want it to. We're going to do the same thing for both the drawer and the crate. And I have so much more left over of this paper. I can't wait to use it for so many different things. You're going to see me bring these things back out. Just a little chunk missing here, a little chunk missing there. But it's so pretty. I can't help it. She's so pretty. I love it. Same thing with the square one. So we're going to repeat the same things here. And then, of course, got to cut off the edge because it has a white border on it. And make sure your insert still fits even after you've done all this. Now, I could have used my paper trimmer there, but it's already 100% gonna fit. And now I'm just gonna use hot glue to secure the paper inside. Now this is not needing any other kind of decoupage. It doesn't need to be sealed. Like I said, everything I make is normally and always going to be, unless otherwise stated, an indoor item. So this is a shelf sitter. This is supposed to sit somewhere just so that when you walk past it, you see it and you smile. Whether it's, you know, on your desk, on a table, next to the phone. I said next to the phone, like people actually still have phones in their house. Like my grandma had a phone stand in her house. We had phone stands in my house when I was growing up. We always had the phone sitting somewhere, whether it was in the kitchen or over in the living room. But in any event, yeah, I just dated myself there, but I know you guys are with me. How many of you had phone stands? Even my grandma still had a rotary phone on hers, and that thing was heavy. Like you could take people out with it. But anyways, I'm talking through the video, sorry. I got a couple different knobs, drawer pulls from Amazon, and now I need to put holes in my crate, in my box. So I'm going to use this pin vise I also got from Amazon, and we're going to put a hole in here. So finding the center of this here, I'm going to put my knob on top. Now see how pretty that knob is. That green is my favorite color green. Now I'm just measuring this here to try to guesstimate as best I can to find the center before I start a hole. So I made a little indent there, and I took my little pin vise here. I'm going to show you how it works. This bottom part moves, so you put that in the palm of your hand, so that twists, and then you're going to hold the top part with your fingers and then move that along. So the piece that's you're pushing the pressure in with your palm of your hand, it stays in your hand, and that's where the rest of it twists. It's very easy for putting small holes in things. So if you want to make something into a keychain, or if you need to do such as I'm doing here, is adding a knob to these things, it's the best thing without having to actually get power tools out. So I'm doing the same thing for the crate, and I will be doing the same thing for the drawer. Now the drawer here, this drawer pull from Amazon, I've used these in a couple different videos. These work out great. The screws are longer than anything I've ever put them in, but I can cut off the sharper tip of that screw with a like wire cutters. The problem with my green knob here is the screws that came with it were way bigger than the largest drill bit that I had for the pin vise. And also, hindsight, since I'm coming to you from the future, these screws fit, sure, after I made the hole big enough. Yes, that's not a problem. And also, that little file I was using is like a jewelry thing. It's used for beads here. You can get that from Amazon. It's linked in my description. I could not find a screw that was short enough and or able to cut. Everything else, this is my junk drawer from the house. And please tell me you have one. This is what happens from years of hanging and unhanging and moving things around and building furniture and having extra pieces. Nothing. I could find nothing that would fit. And nothing that I could cut. All of the screws were way too thick. So I would have to go to the hardware store at some point because I do have 11 more of these beautiful green little knobs here. So I opted for a dowel. I had an extra piece of wood skewery dowel stick from probably some pick that I got in the past, fit inside the handle or the knob here of the drawer pull. And so I cut a little tiny piece. I'm basically going to turn it into a peg since I've already put a hole in the crate. And I lost that battle with trying to find a screw that would fit properly, that it wouldn't show through like massively, like a good amount on the other side. So we're going to just create like a little pin peg system here. Now I covered that entire inside of the drawer pull there. There's a little hollowed out section under that metal piece. And the little wooden skewer part, that's all E6000. So I had to have patience to set her off to the side. Now, as I'm showing you here, I already cut the tips off of the screws so that they won't show through the side. And since we've already drilled holes, I don't necessarily need the sharpness in order to, because that's a self-tapping screw, I guess. A self-tapping is what it's called. You don't necessarily need to drill a hole, but it is much easier. So, and also, if I've in the past, what I've experienced is that I ended up going really, really crooked if I don't drill the hole. That one went in great. Now we got a little handle. So we're going to stay working on the square one while the E6000 dries on our crate. I have these cute little mason jar wood cutouts that I got a couple years ago. And what I want to do is I want to make this one like a cute little stand-up decoration. So this one also messed up. This particular one here, I got these markers. This is where also I got the marker paper that you saw me use for the inserts. I don't know what I did here, guys. I chose some colors I don't know about, and then it started to bleed. So here, this is apparently I felt like going with all the color olive for some reason. Now, the gray color here for the lid, that's fine, but I took a darker color to try to accent, and you can see how it started bleeding. Meh, don't do that. Now, what I should have done was, hindsight, scrap that and just grabbed a new one and just started on a new one. But I thought maybe I could layer it and find a complementing color. So I sanded it down a decent amount, and I took this Cosmos color that matches kind of like this peachy orangey color that was in our scrapbook paper, or in our decoupage paper, and I decided to go over it. I felt like it covered up enough of the green because it just wasn't working for me. And then also with the other marker there that kind of made it bleed, it was like a little upsetting. So I came back with a Sharpie. This is a fine tip Sharpie here, and this one started to work out better. But again, what do you think? Should I have just scrapped this and then went back with a new one, or what do you think? Do you think it kind of gives it a little bit of that whole vibe I like to go with, where it's like messy and sloppy and, you know, distressed? Because this thing looks sad. Now I'm gonna attach the back of this to one of these wood craft cubes from Dollar Tree because we need it to stand up. So you can see there's all my color testing on the back of it with some of the other marker colors I thought. And I'm just gluing one cube to the back of the mason jar, and we're going to use this as a little stand-up piece in our little front of our junk drawer. So it's almost like we're making a collage out of all these little drawers. Now I got this off of Amazon. They tell me, I think it in my last video too, they're saying this is Excelsior grass. It's wood shavings, dude. I don't know. Is that Excelsior grass? Tell me, do you have it? Have you used it? Excelsior grass, I thought, in my opinion, was supposed to be a lot thinner of a shaving. If it is made out of wood, I don't know. But this is just totally wood shavings. So I'm not sure if I got duped or not, but tell me what you think. So I added this to the back of the drawer, and then I put my little mason jar down in front. And because we have that cute little stand-up thing, that little cube in there, that she's standing up front. So it's almost given the shadow box vibe to my little collage here. And now Struggle Bus decided she already had a problem with the other knob, then she had a problem with the mason jar. Let's give her a problem with the ribbon. So the bows on this particular project took on many different facets. Here's the first bow. I cut some grosgrain ribbon I had, and that didn't work out, so cut them apart and made two little tiny bows, and I glued those bows to the front. Thought that I liked them. It was like, meh, I'm on the fence. Decided to continue to decorate the rest of the box. So you're seeing me add, this is some hops that I bought off of Amazon. I took the little buds off of the picks, and I'm just tucking those in between the decoupage backed paper and the Excelsior grass and my little mason jar decoration. Now this right here is a pick that I took some of the cream berries. I just cut it off and I put those in two different places and added those in. So I'm still layering my decorations and making my box. In the meantime, the bows are still bugging me. So cut to, all right, I'm taking these bows out. So I applied heat gingerly as I could to make sure I don't melt anything else in there. And they came out pretty good. And it didn't leave any kind of residue back. I mean, yes, there was glue there too. But I mean, if you reapply heat to glue, it turns back, you know, it won't be white anymore. This is what happened with the extra pieces. I kind of tied knots and stuck them in the corner and then hated that even more. So at this point I said, I'm not taking this out. I'm just going to tie more bows and shove them in there. And it actually worked out great. This right here, you can't tell because I've sped it up, but I'm very frustrated. So all I did was I said, you know what? Forget this. I'm tying another bow, and I'm going to shove it in the corner and see what happens. Because I already put another piece of hops in there, and then I already added some more Celsior grass thinking that it would help with what was there, and I literally couldn't stand it. So I just added 2 more bows to the top. I left the tails long. I let them hang over the rest of the stuff, whether it covered it up or not, and I love how this turned out. It's one of those things where I had to drive myself to absolute craft frustration before I found my sweet spot. And my sweet spot right here made me happy. I got once that orange bow, because I love the floppiness of it, you know, the way it kind of falls over on the side and the tail comes over the front. That's where my happiness was. Tell me, do you get that way too? Like, do you get yourself so mad you have to walk away and come back? I didn't have to do that this time, but that's pretty dang close, man. That struggle bus would not leave the bus stop out front of my craft room. Let me tell you, it turned its flashers on and it was there for the day. Now, our crate is ready to work on. I'm going to take these little wooden spools. Now, I was talking through it, but I have a larger spool in the back there. I think I got it Hobby Lobby. The smaller spools I got off of Amazon. They're linked in my description. And I'm going to use this Olden Gray Bardwood Patina. If you see there, it says Instant Weathered Wood Look. So I've used this before only to basically as a wood stain. I'm putting it on the smaller spools here the easiest way possible without actually having to sit there and painstakingly paint each one of them. I just put them in a little bucket with a little bit of water and then just kind of messed them all around in there. Got all the edges and ends covered and then just kind of patted them dry with another paper towel, and I got the exact look I wanted to. So that patina kind of globbed onto the edges around where the little raised parts of the spool were, and I got exactly the look I wanted out of the spools. The larger one I still hand painted, got the same way, got the same effect. You can use this as an actual patina or a decoupage medium. I haven't. I have only used it as like a wood tint or a wood stain. So tell me if you've had an experience with this, if you would probably use it yourself. I love the look that it gives to natural wood. It gives that gray look, and gray weathered wood's like extra weathered. It's been sitting out so long it's starting to turn gray and then white. I love that look. And then this is what they look like once they're all dry. I love it. So now we're going to start assembling our cute little crate here. And I was just thinking, okay, let me grab some more berries. So I now have a little chunk of yellow berries that came off of a random pick. Now I'm going to go back to my old familiar go-to Spanish moss for this one, and I'm going to tuck the Spanish moss into the bottom of the crate. We're going to secure that down with a little bit of glue. I'm going to tuck this little bundle of white or yellow berries that I cut off of some random pick somewhere, and I'm going to tuck that in there in the bottom too. And then we're going to start putting our wooden spools in. Now, if I was thinking correctly, I should have, hindsight's 20/20, but I also didn't want to put so much into these that they would be overwhelming. But you could maybe look at this like maybe as a seamstress type or a Sewing Notions decorative box to that point. Like I could have put, I don't want to put needles per se, but I could have put like maybe wrap some embroidery floss around a piece of a skewer or something, and then added that into the side, or added I have some really small little micro buttons that I put on the little crochet hats that I like to give out as thank you gifts for anyone who purchases stuff from me from my coffee shop. I crochet little tiny hats, and then I make these little flowers on the hats, and then in the middle of the flowers I put the little tiny buttons. I have buttons I could have sprinkled in here, but I also don't want to go overboard. Sometimes overboard is good and sometimes it's not. So I just arranged all these little wooden spools in a fashion that made my heart happy. So some are laying on their side, some are standing up. And it's just, I'm creating a cute little scene. That's really all it is kind of making a little shadowy box collage type thing. Makes your little crafty heart happy. And then, of course, I wanted to add just a little bit of ribbon. So I have this satin ribbon that, you can get that anywhere. I've pretty much got most of mine at Michael's. And I cut 2 small little strips. And then I'm going to tie a knot off camera, because that's exactly what you do when you want to make a DIY tutorial is, do things out of frame so no one can see how to do them. It's great. Anyways, all I did was tie a knot in the middle of those 2 together. And then I'm cutting the ends off at a diagonal just in, a nice way in order to get this. This is all I'm doing. It's a bow alternative because I would have needed a bow so teeny tiny that I probably would have had to get some sort of other apparatus or fork and then watch a video on how to do that. So I felt like it's a cute little bow alternative, and it also ties the color of the knob at the top of our little crate here. Looks like I love it. I love calling these things little junk drawer pieces. This has been like my happiness because I've made some of these out of tin cans too, like tuna cans and stuff. But the little wooden boxes I love just saying I've got little decorative junk drawers, and they're really great for shelf sitters or if you are still into the tiered tray stuff. But any little tiny vignette, anything you have that you can just kind of tuck something in to the left or the right, they look great. And you can fill them with anything. This is just random stuff I had that made me happy. So tell me what you think. Is this the, what do you say, like vintage farmhouse? There's nothing fancy on these. I didn't add pearls or lace or anything. Let's just say vintage fancy farmhouse, but there's no fancy in here. It's just so cute. And I love that paper in the back there with that chipped paint. You could see the terracotta in the back of it. The decoupage paper just made me so happy. It's just a theme I grabbed and I went with, but tell me what you think and tell me what you would have done if you, would you do the same thing? Do you like junk drawers? Pick a drawer, pick a little wooden box, stick a handle on it, and you're halfway there. I love it. Now that's it for today. We had 3 DIYs, but 4 total. I just wanted to go with some more everyday goodness that it's good for filler, it's good for smiles, good for happiness. Tell me what you think though. My first time trying that texture paste worked out great, so you're going to see me do that a lot. I have a lot of stencils and I have a decent amount of that texture paste in there, so I'm probably going to be a mad woman now with it. But I like how everything turned out. It makes me very happy. All of these girls are for sale. They'll be listed in my coffee shop, so go take a peek there. And that's it for today as far as the video is concerned. Now, again, mentioning my coffee shop, I have a coffee page. So if you like my videos or feel like you've learned something from me, you can make a donation at there's a link in my description, but there's also a link there for my coffee shop that you can purchase my DIYs. If you like something I've made, you can take a peek there. And that goes towards the donation, and every little bit helps keep my channel going. So again, never required, always appreciated. And that's it. So with all that said, I love you more than I can possibly say in words. You guys are my fuel, and I am so grateful that you're here with me. And that's it for now. So many hugs, happy crafting, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.